You probably must have heard people saying, the British colonized the world for spices, so why don't they use it in their food? It's become a joke that pokes fun at how bland British food is. But how true is this statement? To understand this, we need to go back to 15th century Europe. Back then, spices were in high demand across Europe. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, cardamom. These items smelled different, tasted different, they were rare and expensive. People treated them as luxury items. Spices were costly, exotic, status symbols, and full of mystery. In fact, the spices were so valuable that black pepper was called black gold. Spices came from India, Sri Lanka, and the Spice Islands, which are Maluku Islands in modern-day Indonesia. Back in the Middle Ages, Arab and Venetian merchants dominated this trade. Ships sailed from India and Indonesia to the ports in Arabia and the Red Sea. Then caravans carried the goods across Egypt to Venice, which sold them to the rest of Europe. The Europeans quickly realized that they needed to control the trade in these exotic goods by cutting out the middlemen. That way they could make big money. And that started the age of discovery, and Europeans went in search of sea routes to India and Southeast Asia. And then in 1498, Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama found the direct sea route to India by sailing around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. This was a huge win for Portugal. Portugal quickly monopolized the spice routes from Calicut, Cochin and Goa in India. They also took Malacca in Malaysia and gained access to the Spice Islands in Indonesia. The Spanish tried a western route, and Magellan reached the Philippines in the year 1521. And that's how Spain entered the spice trade. Spice trade was dominated by Spain and Portugal in the 1500s, till the British and the Dutch decided to join the game. In the year 1600, the British East India Company was formed, and the Dutch East India Company in the year 1602. From the 17th to the 19th centuries, the Dutch dominated the core Spice Islands, while British power expanded over India and later Sri Lanka. The British East India Company wasn't a government project at first. It was a joint stock company, a private business run by merchants and investors. Its goal was clear: to make money by trading spices and other luxury goods from Asia. The East India Company set up its trading posts called factories in India and Sri Lanka. The idea was simple: buy spices cheap in Asia, sell them at huge markups in Europe, and share the profits among investors. But although the East India Company's first aim was to secure spices, over time its trade portfolio expanded to products like textiles, tea, indigo, saltpeter, and more. By the 1700s, the European market was flooded with spices. Spices became cheaper and widely available, and they lost their luxury status. As supplies rose, pepper's price fell and it shifted from elite luxury to everyday seasoning. Yes, spices mattered a lot early on, but over time they just became one of the products in Britain's big basket of trade products. In fact, products like tea, cotton textile and opium became way more profitable than spices. So we can say that the first part of the statement, that the British colonized the world for spices, is only partially true. Okay, now that we have some idea about the British spice trade, let's talk about what the British did with the spices. First and the most obvious use, cooking and food. Yes, spices were used in British cooking, though the extent and style changed over time. In medieval and Tudor England, spice-heavy cooking was not unusual among the elite. Think of dishes with cinnamon, ginger, pepper, saffron, and cloves. Spices were markers of wealth. As trade expanded and spices became more available, they gradually lost some of the luxury status. The taste for heavy spicing declined, and this decline of very heavily spiced dishes in Britain was mostly due to changing fashion and status. During the 18th to the 19th centuries, the British living in India adapted local cuisine, which came to be called as Anglo-Indian cooking. They brought recipes like kedgeree and mulligatawny soup and other milder spice dishes. Back home, printed cookbooks introduced curry recipes. Hannah Glass's 1747 bestseller printed one of the first English curry recipes. By the Victorian era, household staples like Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management offered multiple curries and a DIY curry powder. Curry powder became a British market invention by the late 18th century. Curry powder was a pre-blended mix to stimulate Indian flavors at home. In fact, curry powders were manufactured in Britain and exported globally, to British colonies, to European markets, and even to the US. Spices were also used in festive foods. Christmas puddings, mince pies, mulled wines, and ales all used cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and ginger. So British households certainly used spices, though maybe not always in the same way as Indian, Southeast Asian, or Middle Eastern kitchens do today. In short, the claim that the British don't use spices in their food is false. They do, but the style and intensity has changed over time. Spices also had non-culinary uses. In early modern Europe, spices were believed to have medicinal properties based on humoral theory. Medieval and early modern Europeans believed spices warmed the stomach, helped in digestion, balanced humors, and prevented disease. Apothecaries compounded pepper, ginger, cinnamon, and others into pharmacological preparations. Cloves have long been used in toothpaste and toothache remedies. Apart from the medicinal uses, spices were also used in perfumes, scented oils, and incense. And they were also used in preserving foods, flavoring wines, in pickles, confections, and drinks. So the use of spices was multifaceted and not just in food. And Britain didn't just consume spices domestically, it also resold them to other European countries. And as Britain's empire grew, spices were no longer confined to Europe. They became part of the British global trade system that linked Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas. For example, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were shipped from London to Caribbean plantations, where they flavored rum and sweet preserves. British merchants sold pepper and spice blends to North American colonies, especially in urban centers like Boston and New York. Spices were part of luxury goods traded to West Africa in exchange for gold, ivory, and tragically slaves. By the 19th century, London became the financial capital of the spice world, even if it wasn't the place growing them. Leadenhall Street in London is where headquarters of the East India Company were. Mincing Lane, which got the nickname the Street of Tea and Spices, was a major center for commodity trading, particularly tea and spices. Goods from all over Asia would arrive at the East India Docks in Blackwall in the east of London. Buyers from all over Europe came to London to bid on spices, tea, and coffee. This trade created whole industries like insurance, shipping, and warehousing, and created banking and credit systems to finance long voyages. These systems still exist to date. For example, Lloyd's of London, which is an insurance marketplace based in London, originated as a coffee house where ship owners and merchants gathered to insure spice and tea ships against the risk of long voyages. Its entire business model was built on marine insurance for global trade cargoes, including spices and other colonial commodities. Today, British food sits at a fascinating crossroads, shaped by spice trade and colonial past. The country that once chased pepper and cinnamon across oceans now has one of the world's most multicultural food scenes. Traditional staples like fish and chips, the Sunday roast, Cornish pasties, shepherd's pie, and the full English breakfast still define classic British comfort food, but the cuisine has transformed through migration and global influence. Dishes inspired by South Asian, Caribbean, Middle Eastern, and African cuisine, especially chicken tikka masala, balti, curries, and kebabs, are now as British as pubs and Yorkshire pudding. In fact, chicken tikka masala is often called the national dish of Britain because it represents the modern multicultural identity of Britain. So British cuisine today is not bland or closed off to spice. It's a fusion born out of historical trade and colonial encounters. That brings us to the end of the video. My name is Ajay and this is Alive and Curious. And if you like the video and for more such stories from around the world, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. You may also consider becoming a member of the Alive and Curious community, which will give you access to the exclusive perks. Thank you. See you in the next one.